Hello, my name is Jacob Burton, and this presentation is for the Data Acquisition and Analytics course taught by Professor Matson at Southwestern College Professional Studies. It is an introduction to data analysis and finding your path in the data world. So let's get into it. What we're going to talk about in this presentation, I'll briefly explain the different areas that we'll need to be familiar with to succeed in a role as a data analyst in a company. So the areas that we'll discuss are business intelligence, analytics, data marts, big data, the characteristics of data, data mining, market basket, and cluster analysis. And then we'll wrap it up at the end. All right, the first topic, business intelligence. So business intelligence can be described as groups of tools and techniques to organize data. The idea being that we can use these tools and techniques to provide accurate, actionable, and understandable information on demand to decision makers. So the whole idea of it is supporting decision makers. Some examples of these tools are products like Microsoft Business Intelligence, Domo, and Tableau. I mean, the list goes on, but those are some examples. All these products are used to organize information so that it's easy to find and easy to digest. By using tools like this, we can make data-driven decisions in business. All right, next topic, analytics. So analytics, it's a scientific process. It's used to communicate meaningful patterns that have been discovered in data. In other words, it is the process that we might use to provide us, to provide us business intelligence. This process is necessary for us to gain insight into the data that we are collecting. Without meaningful insight into the data we're collecting, our decisions would have to be made on subjective impressions versus having something objective that provides us feedback. It is important that we find ways to collect objective feedback because this is what allows us to measure performance and then make improvements instead of basing it on how we feel about how we're performing. We want something we can measure against. So we use analytics. All right, next, data mart. So data marts. It sounds almost like you go shopping for it, but that's not what it is. So a data mart is a data storage system, according to Amazon Web Services. So these storage systems contain the information that is specific to a company's business unit. So it's not all the data that a company is collecting. It's specific to a business unit, like a department. So its contents are a small selected part of the data that businesses store in their larger system. So the reason that companies use the data mart is to analyze information efficiently, right? You don't want to be pulling all of our data together and sifting through all that. We put stuff that's particularly specific to departments in folders for departments, things like that. So we can use this data, or we can use data marts to provide summarized data for decision makers to use quickly. For example, this looks like business, stores data from many different sources like orders, information on employees or suppliers, and financial records. They all source in one big data storage system. But like how a person might store everything, or like a person might store everything on a hard drive. Then they would organize this information that is relevant to specific areas together, like we talked about. This could look something like, if you're a student in college, you would save your assignments, your sources, your notes, rubrics in a folder that's specific to your class, and maybe even go more specific by unit. Similarly, a company would organize all the information that's relevant to a department in a data mart. All right, next topic, big data. So a key component to data analytics is big data. No, big data is not used to describe large tech companies or is some kind of conspiracy. It's not that kind of big data, right? Big data actually refers to an extremely large amount of data that is varied and it continues to grow at an exponential rate. So we're talking just exorbitant amounts of data. So much data, you don't even know what to do with it. So much so that it's typically too large and complex for normal data storage tools. With big data, companies are increasingly armed with information to make better decisions for the present and the future. All right, but what exactly is it, right? So key components to big data are volume, velocity, and variety. What does that mean? They're somewhat self-explanatory, but we'll talk some numbers just so that, we can give them some justice. Volume speaks to the extremely large amount of data, and velocity refers to the speed at which it's created, like it might suggest. But according to Duarte, in an article that he wrote, approximately 328 million terabytes of data are created every day. This data takes many forms such as messages, updates, or images posted to social media, videos created, locations from signals, from cell phones, what types of devices were being used to access different websites, all that kind of stuff. That's what's known as variety. But 328 million terabytes, just so everyone's on the same page every day. I mean, most your laptop at home or whatever sometimes has 1 terabyte. You're talking about filling up 328 million of those every single day, approximately. So if you look at the chart, you can see that global data generated annually, I mean, it's just going up. And that's the exponential rate that it was talking about. There's just more and more and more data being created every single day. So the data can't be organized in a location. Oh, back up just a little bit second. So we talked about variety, then I kind of went off on a tangent, but the data can be organized in a location or not organized at all. So that's known as structured and unstructured data. But anyways, big data. So we're talking just tons and tons of data, quick, exponentially growing every day. All right, so characteristics of data. And sorry, I had a little bit of a mess up there on the slide. So when determining whether data is good to be used or not, we need to consider where it's coming from. Some of the characteristics that we look for when we get data and how we're examining it is how accurate it is, its completeness, where it's coming from, like I said, if the data is applicable, and how timely we can collect it. Data that's good, if we look at the list below, has the characteristics of being accurate, complete, reliable, relevant, and timely. On the other hand, data that's not good is vague, it has missing values, it's outdated, or it's redundant. We don't want to spend time collecting the same things. We would need it to be what's on the left side under good. We need data that instills confidence in our decision-making process. And if that data isn't clear, or it's incomplete, or not relevant, then essentially we're going to have an issue where the company's revisiting issues, or where we're having to slow down because we're not making good decisions based off of what we have. So we want what's on the left side. All right, moving on. All right, moving on to data mining. So, like the name might suggest, data mining is the process of uncovering valuable information from large data sets. So if we look at the picture, this is what I got in my mind. Just like ore mining, a company will go through tons and tons of rock to pull out particular resources like coal, underground, or marble in a quarry. We go through tons of data to pull out information that we want. So additionally, we limit to where we are mining, as like ore mining companies. They don't randomly sift through random ground until they happen upon a resource. Rather, they go out and they survey to find where they should be focusing their efforts, and then they start collecting ground from that area. In the same way, we don't collect every bit of information and then go through it. We survey and determine where we want to collect from, and then store that data in a location where we can sift out the valuable information. Moving on to market baskets. All right, so a market basket is a technique that looks at the purchasing patterns of customers. For example, when a customer purchases a toothbrush, they might also purchase floss. This type of data mining technique is useful because it allows companies to predict the movement of inventory, and it allows an opportunity to market certain items to customers by co-locating products that are often purchased together, or suggesting these products that are bought usually together when the customer is shopping online. This technique became more viable when companies switched to point of sale systems that were electronic instead of handwritten records. So without it being electronic, this method would be far too slow for companies, but with, like I said, electronic point of sales records, now it's much more straightforward. Moving on to cluster analysis. So cluster analysis is important. It's a method for processing data. So we need some way of finding similarity in data. So the idea is for cluster analysis is to take data and place it into groups, also known as clusters, based on their similarity. This process can help us understand our customer base, which in turn informs how we should market our product or services to our customer base. The similarities can represent many different characteristics, such as age, where the customer lives, their economic status, or even political perspectives. The key is to understand how the data relates and how you can use it to reach your customers. Alrighty, so we'll wrap things up here. In conclusion, we've talked about the importance of understanding business intelligence, analytics, data marts, big data, data characteristics, data mining, market baskets, and cluster analysis, and why all of these are important to a data analyst. By understanding what we're responsible for as data analysts, we will inform decision makers and take our company to new heights. Thank you. On these next few pages are some references that I use to put together this presentation. Thanks.